Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of Bull Banter, the podcast where two brothers from the Southwest talk about the Macarthur Bulls, A-League, and all things football. You're joined by myself, Blake Sims, and with me today on the podcast is none other than my brother Daniel. How are you, mate?
Mate, fucking ready to rip into this one, ready to rip into the Bulls after two quite shocking performances, you got to say.
Yeah, I mean, this week it was really good to have the realization that there's more to life than football, because if that was all there was, you'd be very upset. And we still are very upset. I mean, we love our football, but man, it's hard. It was hard being a Macarthur supporter this week. Two losses to the boys and also to the Northbridge Bulls, which we'll talk about as well. So not really lots to talk about on the positive side, but we'll still comb through everything, and there are things to look forward to as well. Might start with the Brisbane game. I reckon that we looked sharp early on, and obviously it ended up being a 2-0 loss. But, you know, after we conceded to what looked like a really tame Dylan Wenzel-Hall strike from just outside the box, everything sort of dulled. And it felt like, oh, maybe it wasn't going to be our night. And we never really got back up there. After that initial start where we looked really composed and in control, there was always this sort of anxiety hanging around. And you know, the strike itself, it wasn't anything spectacular. I thought that Federici was a bit poor there. He must have been sort of caught flat-footed or just was unsighted, because he got beat at his near post quite cheaply. And then after that, the goal, Dylan Wenzel-Hall comes and does a knee slide for no reason in front of the bullpen, who were they were wearing blue for autism awareness, and they were trying to do their sort of engagement with the crowd. And so I think he was trying to say like, hey, no, look at me, when you know, he's not important in comparison to the whole awareness campaign that they were doing there. So he made himself the villain for the night and copped a bit of abuse. Really revved the fans up.
He loves a bit of shithousery. And, you know, we were happy to give it to him all night. He didn't do too much after the goal. So you could say we got in his head a little bit with all the jeers we were throwing at him. But yeah, Federici again at the near post. It did happen in that first meeting with Western United, albeit Graxgena's shot was a bit more.
That was a different level
it.
Of strike. Like that was traveling. Whereas Dylan Wenzel-Hall's ones I think it was just good placement, and you'd be expecting a keeper to probably push that around the post at least. So yeah, maybe just caught napping a bit Federici there, which is unlike him. He's been brilliant for us this season, but I suppose, you know, you can have an off night, and, you know, you can say he certainly had an off night. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, he didn't have his best outing for the Bulls there. And then you got the sense that after they went up, Brisbane were a bit more conservative. They weren't going forward as much. They had obviously Dylan Wenzel-Hall still looking quite dangerous. You know, it seems that any team that we come up against who has a bit of pace, the ability to get in behind our defenders, and we struggle a bit because we hold that high line, and we've still done so even with transitioning to that back three. So we do sometimes struggle to track that run in behind and you know, get it worked out between Federici being so high up and the defensive line being high up, and they can float that ball in there. It really creates dramas for us, and I think that's where we've looked really vulnerable defensively this season.
Yeah, 100% there. You know, a lot of people jump it down to, our defenders are, you know, too slow. But it's just because of that high line that we're just going to attract that style of play where a team can just pop one over the top. We saw it a lot in that Adelaide United game, which we'll get into. Didn't see it as much against Brisbane. Obviously, they went up early. They weren't looking to overextend themselves and keep it compact just to see out the win there. But yeah, it's been difficult for us with Franich and Susiata out, you got to say, having that Definitely. Whole right side, like those two wins on the trot that we had. Or was it 3? Yeah, it was 3.
Yeah, 3.
It's been so long since it was 1, I can't remember now.
Feels like it.
Yeah, but, you know, they were just carving up that right flank all season, and, you know, Susiata is slowly coming back. He came back for about 20 minutes in the Adelaide game, and Frenius seems to be out for a while. Reports of him being out for 6 weeks, which is certainly not good.
According to our sources, 6 weeks. So we might not see him until finals if we make it there.
Yeah, so that's certainly worrying for our final hopes, because that right wing back slot, I don't know where Jake McGing is, whether he's injured or a bit out of sorts, but
I think he's more of a traditional right back, and maybe like Milicic seems to be looking for more of a player who can do more on the attacking side and still get back and do the defensive duties. And that's why he's got Tommy Orr, who's got a brilliant cross on him, and Lockie Rose, who I guess we're trying to develop. He tried Liam Rose in that right wing back spot, I guess, because he functions as a more of a midfielder usually. And I suppose with that right wing back, the way we were playing against Brisbane, he was deployed more in that midfield space and then looking to get in behind every now and then. But
he's not the type of player to really bomb forward and get behind his right forward there. So
yeah, I think, you know what, he'd be better suited to a role kind of like Anthony Martis when he comes on next to Banyat, clean up the play, just maintain possession. He's got the ability, as we saw way earlier in his career when he played for Central Coast, that he can really be that anchor man in midfield and, clean things up, get the play moving, get him ticking over. And so I'd like to see him play there more in the future rather than out wide. I don't think that's his go, especially because he's not the paciest. But Lockie Rose seems to be developing well there because there's less, I guess, attacking onus on him. Like he doesn't have to feel like he has to dribble past people. He doesn't have to get in behind all of the time, and he can deploy himself a bit better there. I think in transition moments, he's better there as well because the play, it's not so static and built up and waiting for him to deliver the perfect ball or whatever. He can just quickly get the ball back and then set us on our way, and we look a bit more dangerous in that way. But looking at, I guess, the opportunities that Brisbane had as opposed to ours, because they sat back, we looked like we were obviously getting into our game a bit more, having a bit more possession, but we're just too slow. I think it's a feature of our game, and maybe it's the way that Milicic wants us to play, but I don't necessarily think that it's the best for creating attacking opportunities, because you see with the goals we do score, it's often Derbyshire's brilliance of being able to be a good poacher, of being able to get on a cross, right? It's never that clear-cut opportunity, although this will be the exception that proves the rule. His goal that he scored against Adelaide the other night, it was a clear opportunity because some brilliant work from Holman, but usually it's cross and, you get on the end of things because you're gambling essentially. You're saying, the probabilities are if we put enough in, there's going to be a stuff up from one of those defenders eventually and we're going to profit from it. So, but because of Brisbane, they've got Macaulay Gillespie and Tom Aldred, and they're those, Championship or League One English centre backs. They just eat crosses for breakfast, and it wasn't working for us. They had Derbyshire covered for most of the game. In saying that, though, Brisbane didn't look like they created many chances, but we just pushed and pushed more into the game, which sort of fed into their ability to get in behind us.
Yeah, and like simply enough said, those crosses just weren't hitting the target. Like more often than not, they were overhit or underhit. And when they were on target, Derbyshire had 2 big men on him, and he's not going to win those.
Yeah, so interesting tactic. I don't know what we could have done differently. Maybe like trying to play it through the midfield a bit more, because but then maybe Milicic feels like our midfield's not good enough to track back properly. I mean, I think that's one of our main bits of adversity, one of our difficulties throughout the season. It's not been our defense being bad, like not our defensive line, not our centre backs. It's our midfielders being a bit soft in the underbelly. You know what I mean? Like not getting stuck in with those challenges, not tracking back, not doing their defensive duties. Usually Banyat's our deepest lying midfielder. And if, the ball sort of gets dispossessed around him, he'll have a bit of a go, but he doesn't necessarily do that deep tracking back, especially from a late midfield runner. And it's what we saw happen with our second goal that we conceded. Riku Danzaki, just to take you guys through this one. This was a failure in communication and a bit of ball watching combined in both our midfielders and our backline. So it started with, we got the ball back off of John O'Shea. John O did well. Tried to put a a risky-ish ball up to the halfway line to Holman, who had 2 on him. And so he sort of pulled out of the 50-50, which was a bit disappointing. And you see that happen a bit. I'd like to see Holman, have a bit more of a go in those situations, but that's a different conversation. Anyway, so the ball goes to Dan Zaki, turns over to him. He's on just inside halfway and he's drifting over to the far side. So on the broadcast, all of our players are pretty much on the near side, having tried to shut down an attack that went down Brisbane's left side. Dan Zaki has it in space and Benyat's drifting across, so is Jeanro. Benyat doesn't really track him. And so Susniar and Orr, who are pretty much next to each other, have to communicate. Scott Neville's pushing on from right back to get wide and offer that, position. So Susniar goes, okay, well, no one's coming near me. I better push up and make Denzaki do something. Otherwise, he'll just carry it right into the box. And all it takes is a dribble past him and he's got a shot on goal. So he goes to close him down. Denzaki puts the ball out wide to Scott Neville. And then Tommy Orr, who I don't know about him being as our left, defender. I don't think he's got the quality defensively to really shut things down. And I think we saw him be exposed against Adelaide in particular with, a faster winger getting around him, putting in crosses, getting into space. Yeah.
But we'll get into that because there's good reasons why he was essentially playing left back in the Adelaide game.
Yeah. But to get back to the goal, so Scott Neville has it wide. He finds a yard or two of space and Tommy Orr does everything he can. He slides in, gets a touch on the ball, it flicks off his studs, and then it puts it into that sort of awkward 4 yards of space between the keeper and the defensive line. I think Susniar would have had the initial cross sorted if it didn't take the deflection, but the deflection takes it past him. Then it's on to Jovanovic and Federici. Both of them look at the ball and think the other one's going for it. And so they both pull out. They let the ball go past, and Dan Zaki goes into the penalty area in that time and is able to get on the end of it within the 6-yard box. Now, if you looked at the tracking that had to be done, probably Benyat picks him up as he comes through into the box, but he doesn't. And then he also goes in behind Jovanovic. So Jovanovic is ball watching at the time, waiting for the cross. Understandable, but also you've got to keep your awareness about you. So he could have picked him up. As well as that, Jeanro, who gave away the ball in the first place, Danzaki literally comes across his line of sight and he doesn't pick him up. He doesn't sprint to get there and put a little bit of pressure on him or anything. He doesn't do that deep tracking because he's essentially an attacking midfield player playing in that deeper role, and he's still getting used to it, I think. And he's done a good job of it so far this season, but that's something he really needs to learn, is that if there's that late midfield runner, it's your responsibility. If Benyat's not going to do it, you got to get there. Because that's why the goal happened. Apart from the deflection, which was unfortunate, it was a real breakdown in communication. There was a bit of ball watching and a lack of effort, really. And it made us look really awful because it was awful defense.
Yeah, there's a bit of a shock goal. Like, you think, we've got numbers in the box, we've got that covered, and then all of a sudden you see it in the back of the net, and you're like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
And that was 2 on that day that just out of the blue, it wasn't looking like a dangerous situation, and all of a sudden, oh shit, the ball's in the net. It's funny. Like, we should, in theory, have the players to be able to do that to another team, where it's just like out of the blue, a moment of brilliance, bang, and we're back. But we don't seem to do it. We seem to really stagnate ourselves in attack, and then in defense, we have those momentary switching off moments that, I don't know, we look a bit weak defensively. And I think the reason for that is not necessarily the defensive line themselves. I think Sluzhnyar, Jovanovic and Milligan are really good at, both communicating, scrambling, shutting down. But it's our midfield that lets us down. They don't track those deep runners, and it puts us in a bit of danger.
Yeah, and like the way we set up with that 3-4-3, the midfielders are more so just there to work the ball from side to side so that the wing backs can push forward in that open space. And then when that doesn't happen, which in the Adelaide game was a bit more apparent, if we try driving it through the midfield, then there's just one centre mid back there, and it just doesn't work. So that's probably the one weakness with that 3-4-3. And if teams keep exposing that and sort of tempting us to go through that channel, then we're going to be in big trouble for the rest of the remaining games here.
Yeah, definitely. It really, as I said, it wasn't our night. It even showed you, I think a moment that really summed it up was Federici nearly having an all-time howler. There was a really innocuous cross that came across in like the 68th minute. He's just stretched up for it and then fallen awkwardly. And as he's fallen down, he's tossed it over the sideline. It could have very easily ended up in the back of our own net, and that would have been really demoralizing. But yeah, it was just, it summed up our night. It wasn't going our way at all. Credit to the boys, though. They did push on. We pushed up and we were knocking on the door. Milligan had an excellent shot that was neatly saved from Jamie Young, and Lockie Rose put in a good cross for Derbyshire that got flicked around the post, and we were really building to something. After that Milligan shot, we started building momentum, but it wasn't really paying dividends for us. Only thing that Brisbane really threatened us with was Golgol Macarthur in a one-on-one. He sort of waltzed through our defence, and the boys lucky to have a lot of trust in Federici because he does love those one-on-ones and he's very good at them. And I guess we're just lucky that Golgol is only named that ironically because he couldn't put it past Federici today on that day.
Federici just eats them up for breakfast all day, but the fact it's getting to those positions more often than not, one day one of them's going to go in. But
yeah, I say it ironically, of course. I mean, we shouldn't be allowing anyone to get in behind us that easily. And it happens probably, I reckon, once, if not twice a game. It's not really good enough. I don't know if it's a breakdown of communication of, Federici should be higher so he can collect that through ball easier, like a sweeper keeper, or if our high line just lets that happen too much and we're not tracking runners. I think one of the problems I've identified, though, through watching us all season is we do try and play that offside trap because of our high line, and it's just the state of the game as it is. It's irresponsible to do that because you have to play until the attack has settled, because the linesmen, even if there's any doubt whatsoever, they let it play on. They don't put their flag up if there's any doubt whatsoever. And so we do all that scrambling for nothing. We, as we saw with Halloran's goal, we played an offside trap when we didn't realize one of our players was coming back onto the field, and everyone stopped. And even Halloran stopped, and he did that little flick back that ended up looking like a really good finish. But I think it's stupid in a way, playing such a high line and playing to that offside trap when linesmen are told not to put their flag up. It just wastes everyone's energy, makes everyone anxious, takes away our momentum. It's not good.
Yeah, it's a good point you make there, is like sort of the psychological effect of, because
every time they put their hands up, right? Yeah. They put their hands up to say, "Oh, ref, put your flag up. He's definitely offside," and then they've got to chase him, and so they waste the energy anyway. It favors an attacking side that's going to put through balls through, because then they can at least exhaust the opposition. And in a game that you wind the rules back a few years, when the flag would go up immediately, we'd have much more success. We'd demoralize opponents by keeping them offside all the time. But because they actually get to play out their attacks, they still get to feel like they've done something against the opposition. And it demoralizes us because the thing we're doing is not getting that immediate feedback. I think that plays a massive role in our psychology. And then we have a lack of confidence when we're going forward.
Yeah, it's kind of like in basketball when, they'll call a foul and then a player will just sort of try to get into rhythm and throw a shot up. And obviously more often than not, Federici's making those one-on-one saves. So, and you see it in basketball, if someone's taking a shot, someone will just jump up and grab the ball before it goes in, so they don't get that sort of rhythm back. So
it's all mind games.
Conversely, it could be working a little bit in our favour where Federici's getting in the heads of their attackers because they're not putting away those one-on-one chances.
That's true. But at the same time, I'd rather us just get the free kick and be able to still stay in that attacking territory.
Yeah. And if you can get like a quick free kick going, then there's like two opposition players that are out of the question. We can move forward fast, get the ball up the field quicker. Whereas when they let the play go, they get to reset, they get to regroup, drop back, and then we're stuck moving the ball around side to side at the back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the rules that are playing against that tactic that we're trying to employ. And I think maybe we need to be a bit smarter about the way we set up there. But again, I'm not the coach.
Sometimes I'll see our backline and maybe we just can't defend. Maybe we're not trying to play an offside trap because there's been so many occasions where someone's just been 5 meters back behind the entire backline. It's happened to, I think Tommy's done it once. Happened on the weekend with Milligan, of course, on that goal, which is a bit unfortunate. And then for the penalty that Adelaide won, it was a simple run in behind for Goodwin, and it was in acres of space. So
yeah, I think
a lack of awareness.
We panic too, but that's a whole nother story. I think as well, like the wing backs of Tommy and Lockie, especially when we're sitting deep and we're having to defend a bit of dominance from the other team, which happens every now and then. In every game, you get periods where it's going your way and periods where it's not going your way. Our wing backs are often slow to get up because they are doing that work all the time, up and back, up and back. We make them there for attacks. We put them there for defending. And when the back three call, okay, we've got to step up so that we don't give them that space in behind and they can catch them offside, maybe they're not used to it. Maybe they're not well drilled in it. Maybe because we've only just switched a few weeks ago to this new formation, maybe Lockie and Tommy are not really on the same page as the back line when to step up in that deep situation, because you saw it exploited against us with Adelaide, taking a short corner, getting it to someone who's just outside the box, sort of in line with it, and everyone stepping up except for maybe Tommy or Lockie. And then all of a sudden, bam, someone's onside in the middle who shouldn't have been. We've got to get that under control. But to talk about something more positive, Charles Mbabwa, when he came on, changed the game, looked lively for us as he always does coming off the bench. And he made one of very few runs in behind and it paid dividends. You know, I like the dynamism that this guy brings because he's willing to get on the end of things. He's willing to put pressure on the defense. He's not willing to play slow. And he brings that real energy and verve to our attacks. He did well to keep the ball from going over the touchline and he put it into a dangerous area. Jamie Young was forced to save and then Lockie had a volley tap in late in the game, 1 minute to go before added time. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, that goal that we've been waiting for him to get, it wasn't really able to be celebrated. He did the right thing. He went and grabbed the ball out of the net and everything. But, you know, it would have been nice for him to, if he was, you know, scoring a winner or scoring, you know, something to go 1-0 up or to tie the game, the place would have gone off.
He can do his own knee slide in front of the bullpen.
Exactly, and we can love him for it. But no, he just went and got the ball and tried to score another before time was up, but it was all too late. So a bit unfortunate there. Even the good things that happened to us are, you know, unable to be really celebrated. It's just the way things are going at the moment. But in saying that, there was one really good thing that happened on the night, despite all the doom and gloom that happened when Brisbane played against us. There was a really good thing that happened. The bullpen were obviously doing their campaign of awareness about, you know, people living with autism. They were working with Macarthur Disability Services and their carers to sort of get awareness of, you know, autism as a disability and the way that people have to cope with that and the whole system around carers and the disability services available to them. Max, who's a young fan who lives with autism, was slated to meet Lockie Rose after the game at the fence. Unfortunately, he was a little bit too overwhelmed by the occasion, maybe a bit shy or whatever, but Lockie did a really beautiful thing. So instead of, you know, encouraging him to come down, and a lot of people were encouraging him to come down, Max, but yeah, he didn't want to. So Lockie said,
"Oh, wait there." It can be a bit of an overwhelming environment anyway after
the game's
it would be
and everyone's very stimulating, right? And maybe that was too much for Max, but Lockie did a really beautiful thing. He told him, wait there. He jogged back, took his boots off at the bench, and then jogged back over, gave Max his match boots from the match where he scored his first A-League goal. Like, that's something really special. And it's something that, you know, you wouldn't have seen if you were in other parts of the stadium, or you wouldn't have seen on the broadcast, but it's the kind of thing that really breeds that connection to the club. Having those moments between the players and the fans is really, really important. And, you know, I hope that Max is now a lifelong fan. You know, it's something special. Who else can say that they got the boots of a player who scored their first A-League goal? And you never know, you know, Lockie's had his ups and downs this season, but he could go on to become a real legend for the club. And imagine that, like 10 years down the track, and you're like, I've got Lockie Rose's boots that he scored his first goal in. It's really special.
Yeah, and you know, hats off to the bullpen for organising that. Everyone in the bullpen just about was in blue for autism. So yeah, it's good to see, you know, the fans of the club putting together, you know, positive things.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. That's part of what active support is all about. People reckon it's just, you know, going, having a big drink and having a chant and booing other players and telling the ref that he's bad. But it's much more than that. It's about community. It's about, you know, representing your area. It's about doing the things that make the community better. You've seen it before with the Wanderers. Their RBB raised like thousands of dollars for Ronald McDonald House before. So these things, you know, they can happen, and they can be positive experiences for the club, positive parts of the club. So hopefully we get more of that, because that's something that, again, really can ingratiate people to follow this club. If you're like, oh, these supporters are awesome, they do these excellent things for the community, why wouldn't anyone want to be a part of that, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
In saying that, and it's a decent segue too, how do we fix attendances at Campbelltown Stadium? It's been a bit dreary, and it saddens me, because you have the spectacle on the field. Everything seems to be going pretty well for us this season. We look slated for a top 6 finish, but when you go to Campbelltown Stadium, there's less and less people every week, and you can't keep using the weather as an excuse, because it's been fine the last couple of outings,
Perth game especially,
and we have had less people. It boggles the mind a little bit. What do you think the reasons are for that, Daniel?
Yeah, well, I think just in general, the facilities and sort of the viewing experience you get at Campbelltown Stadium, it just doesn't quite match other stadiums that are in the A-League. You know, you have some beautiful stadiums like the Mariners Stadium, for example, and, you know, no matter where you're sitting, you're going to get a good view of the pitch, view of the action. Obviously, it's a good thing that the fans are so close to the pitch, you can really get a sense of the game. But just from my mixed experience sitting in the bullpen, like sometimes when the ball's down the other end of the pitch, you cannot see shit. Like,
you have no idea what's going on.
You have no idea what's going on. And like that's why we were probably so surprised with that Danzaki goal in the Brisbane game, because when you're that low and you just can't see anything on the other side of the pitch, it's a bit.
It's a weird angle too, right from the corner. I remember there being a header a few games ago. I think it was against Western United, and it looked like Susaeta was going to score, and he ended up, it was a nod back across goal, but we all thought that it was in. And so we're starting to almost celebrate like it's going in, and, you know, it was just a nod back across goal that ended up leading to nothing. But a bit of a dodgy spot. I don't know where else you put the bullpen though. I mean, I'd love it personally if we were able to swap with, you know, the away fans, because then at least we can, you know, be on the broadcast. But no, it's a weird one. And like you say, we've discussed it with the mayor as well. There's not a lot of undercover seating. So anytime it looks like it's going to rain, people are like, oh, I'd prefer just to watch it at home.
And it's becoming a bit colder too now. So people might just be like, I'd rather watch it in the comfort of my own home. I'd rather just watch it at West, right next to the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, we have mates of ours as well who are like, oh, you know what? I've had a few to drink. I'd rather, you know, be able to continue drinking. Without paying $12 for watered down beer. But Yeah, it's a tough one. It's hard to make anyone, turn up for things. Even a winning team, you even look around the league, the types of games that are being played, and they're not getting many attending. In Melbourne, for instance, I know they've had their issues with COVID, but Melbourne Victory and Melbourne City played a game. They only got 5,000 there. Yeah, it's just tough. I don't know if that's indicative of the league itself or people experiencing COVID. I think one of the factors, though, as well, is that we're in a very we're in a space where there's a lot of sports going on at the moment. Not just NRL and AFL and other competing sports brands to watch, but as well as that, people playing sport, right? The local competitions for, everyone from minis to over 45s started in the last couple of weeks. And, I think there's a big drop off for that because, of course, the main fan base of people who would go and watch soccer would be also people who would play soccer. So if your weekend's taken up with, okay, I get a finite amount of time to spend on doing things that I want to do, of course, you're going to play soccer. You may not necessarily go to the soccer, right? So that's another thing to think about for the league. Do they really want that winter timetable? Because yes, you could say the quality of the games has gone up. The viewing experience is better because the players are actually playing in the season it's meant to be played in. But at the same time, are you precluding people who would otherwise go to the game because they're actually playing the game? Or are they going to watch NRL or any other competing sport? Like, that's the real question here. I guess James Johnson and the Football Australia execs will look at the numbers and make that call, but it's a bit concerning. And I don't think you can put it all down to just Macarthur, not being a viable area. We look at earlier in the season, we had the numbers to justify a team, no problem, even with COVID and everything that was happening, right? The need for it is there. People want to go and support a local team. Maybe not week in, week out. Maybe they're just casual supporters, but even still, we can get people coming in. It just depends on a range of other factors that I think are affecting it.
Yeah. And obviously coming into the league as a new team, it's going to take a while to convert, Sydney FC fans or Wanderers fans. Like a lot of people in the Macarthur area would probably pick one of those teams to go for.
Yeah.
I was a former Mariners fan back in the day. I was happy to swap.
Yeah.
But I feel like every excuse we have is, it'll take time.
I know. How long can you keep saying that, though? I mean, it's season one. And you know what? The game is in a period of transition. They don't get any advertising out there. There's, barely anyone tuning in on Fox Sports because Fox pretty much hides it in their coverage. They advertise other games during our game. It's pretty trash. And from what I'm hearing as well, the new broadcast deal seems to be, or the mail on it is that we're going to be on Stan Sport with a deal with Channel 9 worth $35 million. Now, previously, before the reduced deal through COVID, Fox was paying $55 million to the A-League, but they were paying it to Football Federation Australia. So Football Federation Australia, the FFA, were taking half of that. So that automatically bumps you down to 27.5. Is that right? No.
That's something like that.
55 million. Yeah, 22.5. So a bit of live math for you. 22.5.
That's why he's not a math teacher.
22.5 goes to the A-League and for the Socceroos rights and the Matildas rights and the FA Cup as well. So all of that is now split up. Apparently, Stan Sport wants to pay $35 million just for the A-League itself, which is really brilliant because, Daniel, you can do maths better than me off the top of your head, can't you? All right. What is 35 million divided by 12?
A lot more than 22 divided by 12.
All right. So what it ended up being, it's about $1 million more per team than they would have gotten previously, right? Which then makes a lot more teams viable. Okay. Central Coast Mariners, who are having money issues recently, Newcastle Jets this season, who are under administration. All of a sudden, you get that money in, makes the competition way more viable, way more sustainable. They can then put that money into marketing, which then increases crowds, will get people through the door. They can do offers. They can have the things that actually get you connected to a club. So I see this as a really good thing. If we can get that broadcast deal done, even though it's with Stan and Channel 9, who typically have more of a association with rugby and would want to promote that perhaps more than football, at least this gets us off life support. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully that means that there'll be some free-to-air A-League games, like even if it's just one per match week.
Yeah, I'd love to see A-League on Channel 9, like a mainstream television network. Not on Gem, not on a second channel, right? On Channel 9, get Match of the Week going. It'll be fantastic. Of course, that's just all speculation. That's just based on the sources that have said that that's gone through. It has not been confirmed by Football Australia or anything like that. The other candidates, of course, are Optus or staying with Fox, but I sincerely think that Foxtel's had enough of a go at it and they've run the game to the ground. So any new pasture that's willing to pay us what we're worth is something we should be looking at.
Yeah. Hopefully Bezos can come through and just bump up the Stan's price a little bit, with the Amazon Prime.
But... yeah, let's get a bidding war going. Let's press on to the Adelaide game. So we've mentioned a lot of the moments so far. What did you see from the match, Dan? Take us through it.
Yeah, definitely a worse display than the Raw game. From the outset, a lot of 50-50 challenges weren't going our way. Adelaide were pressing us really high, which is something we haven't sort of encountered too much because we were playing out from, if we won a goal kick, we'd have our two centre backs in the box to receive the ball, and they'd have, Juric and I think Mork was pushing up right on the edge of our box just to, as soon as we pass it out, just to go at us. And we couldn't break it down. Like a lot of the times, balls were just not hitting our feet. We were getting caught out on the sides with Adelaide defenders just running in and putting it on us. We couldn't get much going to the midfield. And I think Jovanovic going off early really hurt us for the majority of that game.
Yeah, I think it's problematic. We try and play like, Arsenal out the back. Or we end up playing like Arsenal out the back rather than Manchester City or someone who does it better because we don't necessarily have the players that have that excellent ability with the ball at the feet as well as the defensive capability from that back line. Susnjar's pretty good. Milligan can do it, even though he's lost a bit of a gallop. I don't know that Jovanovic is that type of player. I think he's more of the stopper kind of. He's not a ball-playing centre-back, you know what I mean? He's that guy who will rise to a challenge in the air. He'll be really good defensively. He'll hold up players and he'll use his strength and his guile to win the ball. But he's not a ball-playing centre-back necessarily. So I think we get ourselves into trouble, and we saw that especially when Golic came on to replace him. I mean, we love the guy, but he's a similar type of player to Jovanovic. Not a ball-playing defender at all, I would say. And there's a couple of really hairy moments there with him with the ball in our own box there. I think also one of the contributors to that high press that Adelaide deployed against us was just they outpaced us on the wings too. Like with all the running that Orr and Rose had to do, and Rose, Lockie Rose is no slouch as we know, but he's exhausted by the time he gets to attack. And when you have Cavallo and Goodwin who match Lockie Rose for pace, and on the other side you had Ryan Strain and Ben Halloran, who's like one of the fastest players in the league, right, up against Tommy Orr, we're always going to get exposed, right? Whenever they played it long, Cavallo or Strain was able to eat it up, right, because Tommy and Lockie are not the greatest in the air, right, and defenders are naturally going to be better than them in the air. And then all of a sudden they get the ball, they win it back. Tommy and Lockie have to track all the way back. And it's, essentially an isolated thing where Goodwin and Cavallo or Strain and Halloran can just have a field day with our wing backs because they're already tired. They're tracking too much.
Yeah.
And they're not able to keep up that sprint forever.
The main problem we had was our 3 centre backs. I think when Jovanovic went off, Milligan had to go from that central centre back to right centre back.
Yeah.
So then you have a right footer on the right centre back. But then we were just way too thin in the middle. Like there were so many times where our back 3 was all within the goalposts. So that meant that the likes of Rose and Tommy had to
cover
pretty much just play left and right backs, had to come all the way back just to make up for the fact that there was 3 people marking Tommy Juric. Like no one has to mark him. Like what are we doing?
You know what was concerning too, and we talked about it earlier, but even Tommy Juric getting in behind us, like what the hell is going on there? He's not fast. I don't think I ever saw him get in behind a player before, like from a through ball. You know, and
about 3 times too, which
he's a cross merchant. Like he gets on the end of crosses, right?
He did take his chance well for the first goal.
It has to be said, he's a clinical finisher most of the time. But in saying that, didn't warrant 3 people on him. I just think we set up all wrong for it, really. Even our midfield was really, except for Benyat, inexperienced, I would say. Like, thinking about it, ball would go through to Holman, and I'm not knocking the bloke, but when he's in that attacking midfield position, he pretty much automatically has 2 on him because, okay, you have one centre-back who's free, they can press the space where the ball is going, and there's also a midfielder picking him up. So he has to be smart about it and either win the foul straight away, get his body in between the ball and the player, and not be so necessarily attack-minded all the time, not trying to play a perfect through ball through, although he did do it once, and fair play to him. It was a brilliant ball. But in saying that, in our general play, when we're under the pump and we're getting a ball out from our back line, when we're sitting deep, he has to be able to win a foul there or play it back into our midfield, not just wide and not just trying to put Lockie through. Because it doesn't always work that easily. We got to work it through there. And I don't know what happened with Puyo, why he didn't travel for the game, but someone like him there could have done it for us. Martis as well. Usually we've brought him on late in games and he's been tenacious and able to, with his aggression, win the ball for us. But I don't think he was the right pairing for Benyat against Adelaide. He's tidy enough with the ball, but I think we had better options there. A Liam Rose next to him would have been far better, in my opinion. We've seen him be that anchorman player before. So I know we're trying to get experience into these younger guys. And, you know, maybe Martis was just told, look, Benyat is not going to track back for everything, so you got to be that person. But when we actually had the ball, it meant that we couldn't put the possession game into place that we wanted to play. And credit to Adelaide, they pressed us really high and really well. But I don't think we had the personnel right for the match, for the game plan we were trying to put through.
And, you know, I think he was playing left forward, Denny Genro. I don't know why. Obviously, that left forward player is going to be moving always more central so that the wing back can sort of overlap and pretty much playing as like an attacking mid anyway. But when Tommy is stuck at bloody left back and can't get up the field, it just fell apart. Then he didn't see much of the ball. He was dropping really deep, pretty much playing like a third centre mid, which just gave them all the space they wanted out wide.
Yeah.
So I think sort of
tactically, like Carl Vert just schooled Ante Milicic. Hey, like got his boys really like fired up for the game. I mean, first 20 minutes I watched it and it was like we were still asleep.
And I think we gave Goodwin way too much respect. Like he's obviously a good player, but he just looked otherworldly against Rose. Like
I think it's down to the inexperience of Lockie as well. Like he's not a right back, and we're trying to play him in a position that's really pivotal for the way we play, because you need to be able to do it all. And while he's got the physical ability to get up and back all day, his technical ability, his game sense, his tactical awareness is maybe not there. It's still developing. And I think he got exploited. And we saw that when he brought down Goodwin. I mean, the game sense of Goodwin there, the chance was pretty much gone. Lockie's obviously herring back to be like, shit, I've got to get back and block this shot. And Goodwin uses his body so well, just steps in front of him and lets the contact happen. And he knows, if I go down here, it's easy. It's a pen. Lockie was a bit naive there. I know he was sprinting to get back and he was doing his job, but yeah, he got taught a lesson there for sure.
Yeah, he'll learn from that, surely.
If he can do it himself in the box, that'd be fantastic because, he can sprint past players, make a chance go begging maybe, and then still make something out of it.
Yeah.
If he uses his body like that, I'm sure Societa will teach him how to do it as well.
Yeah, and just the way we were playing was very stagnant. If you check the docs, I just took a screenshot in the 93rd minute. We were rarely able to get a midfielder on the ball, then switch it to the other side for one of our wing backs in space. And it honestly took until the 93rd minute to actually see it happen, and which is just disgraceful in all honesty. And you can see how highly Adelaide are pressing us. They have 5 players against. There's 4 Macarthur players on the ball in the spaces, and they have 5 in there just cutting off all the options, just really overloading us. We should, when there's that many players around us, we've got to be moving it sharp and getting the ball out wide into space where there's the spare man.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen.
So the question then becomes, right, because in that position, you've got, looks like Milligan back there at right centre back.
And he's got no options there.
And he's got no options, right? Because Lockie is over the halfway line. Should he be dropping back there? Potentially, right? But also that passing lane's cut off by, looks like, Craig Goodwin there. You got Benyat, who's not in a position to receive the ball. It looks like could be Genre. Was Genre on there at the time?
I think so. It's either Genre or Martis who's just sticking on his man. But then
it was Miroslav Popovic up top, and then you had that's Societa at the time.
Oh, Societa, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, you see Derbyshire and Popovic. I think we went to 2 up top at the end anyway.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like. But one of the strikers just has to be looking for the ball and coming deep to receive it. And then, Charles was trying to do that. He was essential a lot of the time when he come on. He was a bit unlucky receiving the ball. He was a little bit off, but it's what we need to really focus on when that ball goes into the midfield, because sometimes we do get the passing lane shut down. We've got to go wide and we've got to reset, and that's fine. We can be patient against most teams. But when that ball does go into midfield, it's got to stick. It's got to be perfect. And that midfielder has to know, as soon as I get this, where am I going with it? Because as soon as you take that first touch to just grab, to steady it on your feet, you got someone right up your ass, and pressuring you. Let's look at something positive from the game. The only positive perhaps from the game, you could say. Jake Holman, counter-attacking football, putting it on a platter for Derbyshire, who picked his spot magnificently, just stroked it into the net, passed it in, casual as you like. It's like he'd done it 1,000 times before, because he probably has, right? Brilliant goal. A really good counter-attack. Holman picks up the ball in midfield after intercepting it. A poor pass from Tommy Urich, who dropped deep. And then obviously Holman says, see you later, strolls past Tommy Urich. And then the opposition are backpedaling. Holman sizes it all up. He had Lockie Rose out on the right-hand side, far right. And Genre made that bursting run into the penalty box while Derbyshire peeled wide. And it was brilliant to see the vision of Holman, because he had Genre making that run, which came across his field of view, obscured him a little bit, but he had the idea of it in his mind's eye. I'm going to get this to Derbyshire. He drilled a nice little pinged ball in there, and Derbyshire had all the time in the world to pick his spot. This is the kind of thing that we want to see Jake Holman doing more of. It doesn't necessarily always happen in our games because of the style of play that Milicic wants to put into the players, where, put your foot on the ball, get it wide, work it around, pick the cross out. But when we do have that opportunity to counterattack, he's the kind of guy who could be very lethal for us. And so
you can see why Milicic played him earlier in the season when he came off the bench out wide, because he's that kind of guy who can dribble past a player, beat a man, pick the right spot, do the right thing. And we know from what he's done in NPL, he's got a cannon on him. So I think he could be a really good player in this system as an attacking midfielder, particularly when he's facing goal. When his back is to the goal, then there's a bit of issues because, he hasn't fully developed his body yet. He maybe needs to get on the weights and, get used to that body position between him and the defender. But he'll learn that as he goes on, and he can be such a massive plus for us in an attacking sense for the rest of this season. So I'd like to see more of him there.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of people were disappointed that he came off around the 60th minute mark when he was by far our most active and best player on the pitch. But, a great ball for Derbyshire, and we're happy to see a goal that's not from a cross, that's on another header. But yeah, if we can sort of get these moments going where we're running at the defense and in numbers, because that's something we've definitely lacked, is when we are countering, we're just not getting enough bodies forward. It's usually just Derbyshire and then the chance just whittles down to, we've got to whip it in because there's a whole Adelaide side tracking back before we get any numbers up. So,
yeah. I wonder if, I don't think Milicic will do it, but I wonder if it's better with the personnel that we have to try and play that counter-attacking football. Because if you just say to a winger like Rose or Susaeta, get in behind, they can do it. Maybe age is a factor, because I guess at the start we did hire a lot of youngsters, and then our older players came through for the later contracts, right? And we initially were looking like a really youthful side, and then all of a sudden later it comes in and we've got all these older blokes. James Meredith's in his 30s. You got Benyat and Susaeta, obviously. Derbyshire's in his 30s. So the real spine of our team, and Milligan, of course, the spine of our team is over 30, if not mid 30s, right? So maybe age is a factor there. They want to slow it down so the more experienced players can get their foot on the ball and it's not so frantic and all over the place. But I think with the youngsters we have, the style of play that they're going to want to play, and that would be most effective for them, would be something more counter-attacking, more sit back, absorb, and then take your opportunity when the opposition overextend themselves. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it can work, but we just got to be careful what team we're using that sort of strategy against. I think it could have worked if we, in the second half, try something a bit different. It might have worked against Adelaide, because there's a few times where Lockie was able to get in a bit of space running at a centre back when Cavallo was caught a bit too high. But we just got to adjust it for what teams are versing. I think at the weekend, this Sunday, against an out of form Newcastle team, I think we'll see that possession football again. But then, against the good Melbourne City side, do we try change it up?
Yeah, that's the question. And you know what? The Jets game becomes a really pivotal game now, because if you look at the ladder, right, it's us. We are on 26 points. We've got Western Sydney and Raw to play tonight, right? Western Sydney on 25 points, Raw on 20. Western United also with, they've got 3 games in hand on us. So that's not good. They're on 20 points as well. So they could be making their climb as well. So it becomes really pivotal for us to get the points over Newcastle, who are languishing down in 11th place with 12 points. They played against... Who did they play against? Was it Victory?
Newcastle.
Yeah.
They Victory won 2-1, and then they had a midweek game as well where they drew 1-1 with Perth.
Perth, that's the one. Yeah. So they played up in Coffs Harbour against Perth. And we beat Perth pretty convincingly. Perth are not doing anything special this season. They're still on 18 points after 15 games, but they're pretty much out of title of finals contention. So, and the Jets were able to draw 1-1 against them, but they've got problems like Steven Ugarkovic, their main midfield, anchor man. He's not playing for them anymore. I think there's issues with his contract situation. He's going definitely to Western Sydney Wanderers next year. And so I think the coach has just gone, oh, well, you're not in my plans for next year, so I'm just going to chuck the kids out there. Their midfield three in the game against Perth was Angus Thurgate, Rami Nazarene, and Luca Pruscio. So they're all very young players, like 20, 21-year-olds, and they're running the midfield. Really, the experience should tell, unless, we make it into a game where it's very back and forth and energetic and excitable, then it's an issue because maybe they've got more legs than us, right? But if we just keep it calm, if we keep composed, if we keep our game where we're possessing it and just, having it tick over, I think we've got the quality over a Newcastle side that, shouldn't be on our radar as a threat.
Yeah.
We've said this before, haven't we?
Yeah. If we drop points at the weekend, I think we're at risk of not making the finals for sure. But the only thing I worry about going into the weekend is the Jovanovic injury. We don't know how long he's out for. And, with Golek in the back three, we did look a little bit shaky. We weren't fully understanding where we needed to be. It was very thin. I wouldn't be surprised if Milicic goes back to a back four with Meredith being back in the side. Was Meredith playing left centre back anyway towards the end?
I think he was
for Sujna.
I think he was left wing back.
Left wing back.
Right. Yeah, but he came on for a midfielder. It was weird.
Yeah.
I think it was just at the end of the game there. But I agree with you. I think we could see a return to our 4 at the back with less midfielders formation. But if Milicic wants to persist with this formation and get the team used to it and learning, because it can work when we've seen it work quite well, then he has a decision to make. I think maybe you'd see Sujniar coming over to the right side, or you might see Meredith in for Tommy Orr, and perhaps even I'd like to see Jake McGing as our right centre back instead of Jovanovic and instead of Golek, just because he's got a bit more pace about him. He's got a bit, he's got the aggression, he's got the ability to win the ball just as much as Golek does, and he can pick a pass as well. It leaves us interestingly poised for the game against Newcastle on Sunday. What are your predictions?
I think it's a must win, and I want us to find our feet again. So I'm going to say 3-0 for this one. I think there might be a couple shaky moments where we have our, 10-minute laps here or there throughout the 90 minutes. But I think if we're fair income about this comp and, we're going to want to hit back after 2 disappointing results, I think we've got to take this one 3-0.
Yes, we have to. But the question is, will we? I happen to disagree with you. I think we'll win, but it'll be scrappy as. I think Derbyshire will get on the end of something in like the 82nd minute. We'll be really nervy all throughout the game. We'll have that possession style play. Like, we won't be anxious, but everyone will be there like, come on, when are you going to score against Newcastle? When are you going to score against Newcastle?
Yeah, I think if it gets past half time, I wouldn't be surprised if the stadium sort of begins to get a bit nervy. And then if the players end up sensing that, and then, gets late into the game,
it could go pear-shaped.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Newcastle aren't anything special, but they do have a threat in Valentino Yule. He's quite quick. He's put away a few goals for Newcastle this season, despite their ladder position. It's been down mostly to defensive errors for them, which we could exploit, and we could have a wonderful time. We could score in the first 10 minutes and go on and win 4-0. Who knows? But I see it being a bit of a scrappy one. I don't see us being able to really employ our game in the way that we want to, and having it lead to many goals. But I think we do score that goal. I think we get over the line against Newcastle, and it just gives us maybe not confidence, but at least a big kick up back up the table.
Yeah. There's not many games left this season, and you've got to take points where they are. And going into this run of fixtures, when they were announced, we thought, Brisbane, there's 3 points. Adelaide, a draw at most, but probably 3 points there. And you got to start picking up points where they count. So it's getting to that tight end of the season. We got to see where we're truly at, I think.
Yeah. It's disappointing because before, the 3-game streak where we won, you would have said we were playing like a top 6 side easily. Now,
especially after that Perth game, it's kind of shocking how
we've fallen
the tables turned over that week for the Brisbane game, where we looked nothing like we were against Perth, where we had complete control for 90 minutes of the game.
Yeah, in the Adelaide game, the first 20 minutes, you would have said we were playing, like a 10th place side. So it's one of those things. We're just fighting for consistency this season. It seems to be the story every week. Which Bulls will we see on the weekend? Only time will tell. But it's a very important game for us. We've got to win. And I hope Milicic gets them all fired up and they come out all guns blazing and get an early goal, because that would be the best thing. It'll put everyone at ease. Everyone can enjoy themselves. We can actually play our football. And I think Newcastle, with very little to play for, apart from trying to impress the coach for next season, will keel over if we get the early goal.
Yeah, that's it. Hopefully we can do the business.
Yeah.
And then we're not having a podcast next week where we're saying how shocking we were played. But
hopefully not. We want to talk about good things. We want to say, did you see that? He's done it again. Puyo, bicycle against Newcastle.
Oh my God, Benyat, 30-yard banger. Oh.
One day, one of those will go in. And on that day, everyone's going to go nuts. But yes, we do thank you for listening to Bull Banter. Thank you for joining us again this week. Remember, you can always subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you got us on your favorites, on your podcast apps. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And keep an eye out for all the content coming through the pipeline.
Tell your friends on Instagram, we're at 92 followers at the moment. Try get us to 100. Just hit that milestone before the weekend, and let's go you Bulls.
Yeah, go you Bulls. See you guys on Sunday.